So my background is partly in education. I started out as a teacher of primary, a teacher of secondary, and then went into the university, Massey, and worked there for some time. And then I had a mid-age crisis, or one of many, as my husband would say. And because I had become particularly interested in adult learning while I was at the university, I thought, what am I going to do with that? And the other big part of my life is I'm a farmer here in the Manawatu. I farm with my husband and my son just north of Fielding at Kiwitea, which Ian McNabb knows, because he also lived there at one stage. And we are sheep, beef, arable. We do about 7 crops we grow, and we have a contracting business. So that leads me to, I'm a member of a catchment group, very involved member of a catchment group, and that's why this topic about catchment groups is of great interest to me. And you're going to help me solve some problems today, because being in a catchment group is not all smooth sailing. There are issues, and you will have to deal with them if you are involved. Who's already involved with catchment groups? Excellent. I can go home now and you can take over. Great. So there are some folks who are newbies to catchment groups, but I think what I'm going to share with you today, well, I hope what I'm going to share with you today will either affirm for those who are already working with them, and for the new folk, it'll be something to start you thinking about them. Because these catchment groups have grown exponentially over the last few years. And they're a different beast to what we were used to working with farmer groups, etc. Because the main thing to keep in mind is they're set up as a community group, and they're also set up as self-managing. Now, they don't always end up self-managing. And what do we mean by that? We are meant to drive what we're doing. It's meant to be about us. We are the ones who know what the problems are. We're meant to drive who we invite, etc., to come and work with us. A different model than what's been used in the old monitor farms and discussion groups, etc., where you folk were the experts and you came. We now consider ourselves to all be experts. We're experts at farming. You're experts at a whole lot of things to do with resource management. So it's a far different relationship, and we have to think how, as the outside experts, what we do to engage with these people and to be involved and share the learning, not drive it, share it. So that requires a lot of different thinking. I'm going to share 3 tools with you today that I hope will help you start to think about how I should work with these different groups. Because my own, and we're going to use my own catchment group, which is Haynes Creek. Now, it's a small catchment group, as I say, situated around Kimbolton, Kiwitea, Cheltenham. Haynes Creek is the little creek that starts at the top of the catchment, goes down through the catchment, runs into Kiwitea Stream. Kiwitea Stream runs into the Urua River, and the Urua runs into the Manawatu, and it runs off out to sea. Our catchment is interesting, but not unique. It is quite a small area. There are approximately 65 farming families in it. The things that are important to listen to, the number of people you're dealing with. 65 families, approximately. That's not including all the small block holders. We haven't gone down that track yet with them, and that's a whole nother conversation. It is also very diverse. It's highly productive land, and it has a real diverse range of enterprises taking place across it. You've got the dairy, the sheep and beef, deer, a lot of stock finishing taking place, breeding and finishing, but you've also got horticulture. There's quite a lot of vegetables grown in the area and flowers. So a whole lot of people doing different things. How do you engage with a large group that's got a whole lot of different people? Those are the things we're going to look at today, because it ain't easy. You have to have some strategies to work out who exactly do you need to work with and why. Because working with 65, and we call it a community, so don't just think of the term farmer, and who is a farmer anyway? Who's the farmer? I consider myself a farmer, but I don't work full-time on the farm. But I'm very actively engaged in both strategic and also in feeding the dogs and, all sorts of other activities. So when we say we're working with farmers, who the dickens are they? And are they the right people that you need? So that's just setting the scene. And now let's have a look at understanding how you can work with this group. And one of the issues we're going to talk about later is we've been going 6 years and we've done quite a bit of stuff. We started just self-initiated by a local farmer in the area in Strawn. He wanted to start looking and thinking about there was regulation coming in around fresh water. So what does it mean for us, and what is the state of our water? So it just morphed over a beer at the Chelty pub, our group, and started getting together. It started with just a small group of us, and we started first generating a few more people, but then we started water sampling. So what is the situation in our catchment? We then invited in Alistair Cole. He was Landcare Trust back in those days, and we invited him in to help us learn more. And then we started doing stuff and having workshops and getting other people in. And then Massey have been working with us of late on their on-farm solutions project. One thing being that a freshwater bioreactor's been built in the area and on my farm. And we're also starting to work with ag research. Now, some of those more latterly have asked us, they've approached us. We started by inviting people in to our group. So there's a mixture going on. But here's a big issue. About the last 2 years, we've really started to lose our mojo, as lots of longer term community catchment groups have. We've kind of lost our oomph. Now, there's a whole lot of reasons for that, and I'm going to get you to help me find out how to find our mojo again shortly. What can you offer to help catchment groups like mine get back together again and get enthused? Because we're going to need them. We're going to need them to, when the freshwater plans are, when the freshwater regulations are sorted out, we've got to get back into gear. Will that be enough motivation? We'll have to wait and see. So let's just start having a look. See, I said pencil and paper. I'm going to just quite quickly share some things to help you think about the group that you're with and what you might do. But the most important thing to understand first, because most of us don't unless we're in education, is thinking about adult learning. I'm going to do this once over lightly because there are lots of things on the internet that you can find out more about. But it's really important because adults learn in a different way to kids. Seems pretty obvious, but we don't always think about it. And one of the really important things about adult learners and people in the groups that you're going to be interacting with, they're very much self-motivated. Not like kids, you've got to go to school and you've got to do what you're told and you've got to learn what they tell you to learn. Adults don't do that. They're far further down the track and can work out what it is they want to learn. And so it's a need to know basis. Now that creates all sorts of problems because it's a lot easier to just give you what I want to give you. But if they don't need to know it, they won't come. They won't come along, they won't be there. And as adult learners, it ties in with that. We're problem orientated or an issue orientated. We come, there's something we want to learn about, and so we come. There's something that is happening on our farm or something that we want to learn. So there's a problem or something to solve, and we come with a whole heap of background experience as opposed to our children or our young people. They haven't built that up, logical. So we come with a whole lot of experience. So we can't get it wrong because we've got to make sure that it's something that fits into what you already know and what you're doing. Problem, it's got to be relevant. And we're busy people. Adults are busy people. And so they ideally want to get learning that's relevant to them and really, if you can manage it, relevant to me and my farm. I don't want to hear about everyone else. I want it relevant to my situation. Now, you can't always achieve that. This is the gold standard of what you hope to achieve. But these things are really important. And from this, and I'll take you through some other ways of identifying, I've got to be ready to learn. I've got that problem. I want somebody to help me solve it in some way. I want it relevant to me. And this is another thing, is adults like to be, some, not all, but involved in some aspects of the learning to make sure it's relevant. Now that can take all sorts of forms. They might help with planning. They might help with demonstrating. They might help with all sorts of things. Involved in the learning, trying to make it relevant to me and my place. Now there's a lot more principles. I've only taken out the ones that I think really pertain to working with community groups. That's a quick one over. And then second model. Now this is one that I've used a lot more with farmer groups and thinking about it. It's called the CASA. Whoops, the boards. CASA model by Claude Bennett. I think this is one that, sorry, the old board's shaking on me, really important to us understand because it's about behaviour change, practice change. So if you've got sort of belligerent teenagers, this will work with them. If you've got husbands who won't pick up the wet bath mat, it might work with them. Not as probable. But it's understanding. I've got one that it hasn't worked with, sadly. So, what does CASA stand for? K is for knowledge. I'm going to just put them all. A is for attitude. S, skills. And A, aspirations. And Claude Bennett says that to get practice change, we as educators, outside experts, actually have to look at all four of these things have to be addressed. Now, there are two of those that I reckon as teachers, educators, we're really good at. We do it easily, we do it all the time. And there are two that we don't often look at all. Which are the two that we're really good at doing? Yoo-hoo! We hand out stuff, we give out information. We often don't help people to process it into knowledge. We give out information and you let them off, go home, and they have to process it into knowledge, what they can use. We're great at knowledge. Attitude. Now, how often do we take time to understand where people are in a given subject, for say climate change? And we want them to change and do this and do that. Do we ever check out if they're actually a climate believer, climate change believer? Because you may have a whole lot of work to do there before you can even get started on knowledge. But it's a hard one. It's a touchy-feely yuck. It's easier to do knowledge. And the touchy-feely part is harder to do. And skills, well, we do that well. Come on team. We're going to dig a hole here and we're going to count the worms and we're going to teach new skills. We're really good at that. How often do we look at the learners' aspirations? What they actually want to achieve, what they want to achieve, not us, what they want to achieve. Not often. I mean, I'm guilty of all these things and I know it. And I'm still guilty. Have anyone else seen this little model before to think about where to start? Nope. I'm not surprised. It was really, really popular back in about the 90s, and then something surpassed it. Other sort of theories of behaviour change and practice change surpassed it, and this one was put on the dusty shelf. But I've brought it back out again for my own use, and I've had to really stop and think. It's hard. It's hard, as I say. But if we're in a subject, I'll just use climate change again, we probably can't get past base one unless we actually look at attitude. And if you look up on the internet, there's all sorts of things about people's attitudes and how to know where they're at and what you can do, what sort of conversation, what sort of questions you can ask. Because you've got to understand where they're at to make it relevant. You can't make these other things relevant unless you know what people are thinking and then what we can do about it. It's not easy. It wasn't meant to be easy. Working with people's never easy. I've had a whole career in working with people. I always thought I did a PhD on people. I'm a social scientist, and I thought the next time if I do another PhD, by God, I'm doing it on grass. Because at least grass doesn't turn up late to meetings and it doesn't talk back to me. People can be difficult. And if you don't hack this sort of stuff, then it's really hard to work with them in any meaningful way to get practice change. And the other little model, which some of you might have seen, and I'm not going to have the time, but to take you through, is a model, and this is another one, just thinking about the whole catchment community. It's made up of a lot of people doing all sorts of stuff. Do you really understand it? And I'm just going to very quickly, because we're not going to use it a lot, but I just want to make sure. Some of you might have seen this. This was developed here in little old Palmerston North with my team at Ag Research. And we did 10 years work on looking at rural community resilience. Now, not new, it's been done overseas, but we just extended it somewhat to a New Zealand context. But you're talking the Haynes Creek catchment is a community of 65 odd families and a whole lot of diverse businesses. Where does your part fit in? It's one element in the whole bigger picture of what these people are thinking about. It's all about systems thinking. And that's what farmers do. Everything's a system. And you have to understand what are the elements in it, what are the parts of it. So another way, and this is also information on this. Some lucky person, if they give me a really smart idea today, will get a free copy of the book that we wrote all about rural community resilience. Alec Mackay and Estelle Dominati and all those. And we had a lot of international collaborators. We worked on rural resilience for nearly 12 years. This is used by MPI when thinking about communities too. Who's MPI here? Yeah, your rural proofing, do you recognise is part of that? They use as well. So it's just all the elements that are taking place and need to be considered in that community of Haynes Creek. So I've set the scene. Easy peasy. You're not looking as though you believe me though. So those are some of the tools that you might be able to use, but we're going to do a quick wee scenario of using these, because it's one thing to understand these, but it's another thing to put it into action. And these can help and guide you. And what I'm going to now take in a little exercise. This is where you have to get involved. I've done my bit, I can go home now. I'll just take that down. We're going to look at this part here. Really important, that part there, the ready, involve, etc. So we've invited you, to join us in the Haynes Creek group because we've got some issues. We have invited you. It's another thing for you to say, knock on our door and say, have we got the answer to your problems? That takes another approach. I'm not doing that one. We have invited you to come and help us solve a particular problem or a particular issue. What do you need to think about to be able to come and work in this group? Remembering, we're quite big, 65 families. Now, the family can be, lots of lots of permeations of husband, wife, adult children. All of those in my family are very involved, either actively or helping make decisions. Which one of them do I want? Because you can't talk to the whole 65 plus all their families and all their staff and everyone else. Where do you start? So, I hope I didn't use I used the pen they supplied. Wow. That's interesting. I used their pen, so. So just thinking, they've identified the issue. You've got to think, who is the issue in that community most relevant to? Because you can't work with every single person and on every single business.
Excuse me, Margaret.
Yes.
There's who are we pretending to be?
Just in your roles of folk who come and work with us.
Okay, but if we go and work with people, we don't try and get them to start a catchment group.
No, this isn't established.
Especially at council, because that just puts the heckles up.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So it's the people who actually come out, directly, or who we might ask, who's your specialist in nitrogen loss or nutrient loss? So it's those folk who come out and advise, essentially the advisors. But my point would be, it doesn't hurt for the people, the others, to understand as well how to do this so that they can support the people who actually come out and work with us. So yes, I might have come to Ian and asked Ian to come and talk. We've got an issue with dairy, something or other, and Ian's been invited by us. But we've got this huge group. Now, I won't use that example because that's an easy one, Ian, because that's an easy one of who I'm going to use. But think of all the subgroups there are in a large group. And we'll just quickly, some ideas of all the subgroups. I'm going to have to write on top of that, aren't I? That's tricky. I'm not sure if I should. But all the subgroups that you could be targeting, who's the people you want to target? Is it the farmer? Is it the farmer and their partner? Is it I'm just making these up because there are so many it could be. You come and help me. Is it the women? Only the women? Now, why I say that is quite a bit of work I did with earlier on, and it was around climate change and understanding that. And it was the women in the farming families at that point in time who were the most receptive, who were the most interested in climate change. And I think that you'll find with most environmental issues, it could well still be, depending what it is. The women in many farming partnerships are the ones who are really interested in the health of the family, health of the land, health of, the whole system. Others experience that? Yes. So I was often targeting the women in these farming families. What about, you could divide it up by enterprise, all the dairy farmers, all the sheep and beef farmers, all the vegetable growers. Come on, give me some ideas. Old, young.
If you're being invited in, isn't the catchment group going to determine who the interest group is?
But not necessarily. You could work with them to identify it, because they don't think in this way usually either.
So younger ones are usually interested in innovation and change.
Might be the younger ones. Do remember another thing about farmers and succession. Once we know we've got a successor, the farmer is more likely to innovate when they've got a successor. So don't count out the older people, because that's the point that they make another decision. I've got a successor, family, friend, somebody coming home. Now I'm going to do new and different things. So don't discount the older people as well. What about, keep thinking of other ways you could divide this group up, and certainly by working with the group, because that's going to come, we're still trying to find the most relevant. Who's the most relevant to talk with? Because you can't work with a lot of them, or not in a meaningful way.
The ones that want to learn.
How are you going to find them?
Chuck a little taster out there, bit of bait.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it the strongest voice in the group?
Could be. Not always.
Or someone who has some degree on that specific topic.
Could be.
Have some expertise already.
A farmer.
We understand more what we are talking about.
Yep. Okay. They might be the most ready because they've already got some background in this subject, mightn't they? And so it also may follow that they are also, that the topic's most relevant to them. But I'm trying to make the point that before you even start thinking about, right, I'm writing my presentation. Wait a minute, there's a whole lot of background stuff I have to do first.
We could identify the attitudes that are there and work out which ones align.
Now, huge to do it for 65 farming families. I'm trying to find the group that you could do that with.
Go to the pub and try to socialize in that way.
I like it. I like it. But you can talk, of course, with the group, but you've got to find those that are most receptive, those that are ready, those that understand the issue, want to learn about the issue, and then involve them. And this must be in a meaningful way. There's lots of ways to involve people in it. Some people I've found, and this again comes back to often the women in be they the farm staff, be they partners, be they owners, be they whoever, they like to be more involved in the planning of the activities, of the just doing stuff around it. But you might have already just chosen a group that's all men. You might have decided that the target audience is all men. Still, it's easy about the knowledge. But you've got to think about this attitude to whatever that issue was. You've got to do your homework before you get really into it. There's no quick way. If you really, really want to enable change, you've got to be in there understanding the people and then moving on to the involve part. And one of the things and I'm just about going to have to leave you with this and then open it up a bit. One of the things that I find really useful to hear what people are saying and what they are doing, I built a whole program on climate change back in 2012, working with farmers groups all over New Zealand. The farmers were at the centre. And I kept saying to them, so what are your burning questions? And that's a good way to get them telling you what they want to know. Get them all the time. What are their burning questions about the topic? And that was easy back then. It was all about, so what's this carbon stuff? You know, we were right back there learning about carbon. Burning questions. And then I used those, and I had a little group that helped me. Those burning questions formed the nucleus or the content for the next session. So I'm talking about more than one session here, people. First session is getting to know these people, understanding the issue. What knowledge do they already have so that I can build on that and help them explore it further? I've got to get it relevant, or they're going to walk with their feet. They won't be there next time if it's not relevant to them. So the burning questions keeps them involved. I ask them when they leave one session, you know, I'm going to be in touch with you in a week. You'll have had time to lie awake at night and think about this. I'm going to be in touch with you to see what your burning questions are. What have you been thinking about since the session we had? And gather all the burning questions together to make the basis for the next session. The first session's about getting to know these people. Knowledge. The whole next session may be on attitude. But you've got to understand these people. Aspirations. We don't often talk about aspirations. We don't take the time to talk about with these people you've now identified as the target group. What is it they actually want? What are they doing at their place that this issue is important to them for? Understand how it affects them personally. And they need to, it might be productivity's down or profitability's, you know, they're not doing well. Get to know your group. Target audience, get to know. Okay, we've just got the 5-minute signal, and I've done a heap of stuff, and you are most welcome to come back to me if, you know, if somebody wants it, has got a burning question, because you'll lie awake and you think, oh, bugger, I didn't ask Margaret that, did I?
So then maybe could an opportunity be for catchment groups to seek funding, just to say to them, like, what expertise do you want to know about? And they'll say, oh, this is the stuff we want to know about, and then you get that in. You look,
Yes.
Then they go, oh, we might get funding to get that expert in. And if it's meaningful from there, then they might go, oh, actually I can see the light and start to build up saving for the next step.
Good point. We've discussed this quite a bit as a catchment group, that time? Okie doke, thank you. Yes, about money. Now, we have a little bit of money. We have a big community water scheme, and they have given us some of their funding, a little bit. But this is an issue for catchment groups. We don't have the money. How are we going to do it all? Burning question for you. So, look, if I've left you hanging and you're wondering, only too happy, give me a call, a Skype call or something, if you're wondering where to go to next. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.